Yes, they may be affected by external forces. They may be affected by those external forces just as rocks are, but trees can also act on their own. They can grow and change and produce leaves and fruit. They can reproduce themselves. And of course, finally, they die. Rocks do not do these things. I'm not a chemist, but my understanding of the term organic is that it refers to any substance which contains carbon and hydrogen bonded in a molecular structure. That includes us. Think about it. You and I are full of carbon and hydrogen. They are bonded in such a way as to give us the capability to move and act, to give us life. Inorganic substances, and again, rocks are a good example, do not have carbon and hydrogen, or at least not in that bonded molecular structure, which permits and enables action and life. One of the serious questions about life is, does it exist anywhere else in the universe other than here on Earth? Here on our common home, the Earth, we know about animals and plants and birds and fish and insects and bacteria and other microorganisms and all sorts of life. Do they exist anywhere else? We don't know for sure. We know about other planets, but we don't know if there is life on them. If we are the only life in the universe, what a gift. It has been suggested that human beings and other living things are, now listen closely to this, human beings and other living things are the means by which the universe has achieved awareness of itself. What an awesome responsibility for us. So life is a great gift which imposes great responsibilities upon us. It seems to me that one of those responsibilities is simply to enjoy it. Give our thanks and praise, as we sang in the hymn earlier. What is there about life to give thanks for? You could make a list as well as I could, a list of things that you are thankful for family and friends, for good health, for work and leisure, for the great outdoors, which has so many gifts and wonders and pleasures, for food and drink, which we enjoy, for our homes, for the work which we do now or we did in our careers in the past, for our children and grandchildren and the potential they represent, the possibility that they will achieve things which we were not able to do ourselves. For our nation and culture and all they bring to us, representing and embodying thousands of years of progress by those who came before us. For our laws and government and even those who govern us, whatever passing dissatisfactions we may have about them, we know they bring structure and predictability and even safety and comfort into our lives for each one of us. We know, if we will stop and think about it, that we have passing dissatisfactions from time to time, but indeed they do pass, perhaps to be replaced by other dissatisfactions, but in all in a passing show of consistency. Things we are thankful for music and art, which enliven our imagination and show us things about reality which could not be expressed in any other way. I often go to the National Gallery of Art. It's not too far from where I live. And my wife and I subscribe to the National Symphony at Kennedy Center. I went last Friday evening to hear the symphony. Midori played the violin. Think about the last time you went to an art gallery or concert. Think about the beautiful music we enjoy here on a Sunday morning, and thanks to Gary for doing all the work to bring to us, Gary and his other tech helpers. So take a moment and imagine a good day. You get up and you hear the birds singing. The presence of your family members feels good and gives you courage. Breakfast is tasty, and then you can go out and work in your garden or sit down and read a novel or work on that project you've been working on or whatever you want to do today. Or maybe you have to go to work, bringing your skills and talents to serve others, doing something you know how to do and getting paid for it. Maybe even feeling good about it or enjoying it. Or maybe volunteer work, which brings good to others, but we don't get paid for it. On the other hand, some days aren't that great, and we need to admit that to ourselves. Imagine the day when you wake up and your spouse isn't speaking to you and you aren't sure exactly why. Sounds like somebody can identify with that. You forgot to plug in the coffee maker last night, so there's no coffee this morning. You open the cupboard and discover Cheerios are all gone and you have to eat cornflakes, which you hate. When you go out to set off for work, your car won't start. Or worse yet, it starts with this noise that tells you something really bad is wrong with it. Something's going to cost you a lot of money to fix. You get the idea. Good days and bad days. Maybe you've read the children's story of Alexander and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. I see some smiles of recognition of people who have read it. If you have, you remember that Alexander woke up one morning to discover that he had chewing gum in his hair. Then he tripped on his skateboard. At breakfast, one of his brothers found a Corvette Stingray model car in his cereal box, and the other brother found a master spy secret decoder ring in his cereal box. But there was nothing in Alexander's box but cereal. It was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. On the way to school, all the other kids got to sit next to a window, but Alexander was scrunched in between two girls and made way back in the back seat. At school, the teacher was too busy at her desk to look up and say good morning to him when he entered the room. Then at lunch, the boy across the table from him had a Twinkie for dessert, and the girl next to him had 2 lemon cookies. And Alexander looked into his lunch bag and discovered his mother had forgotten to pack him any dessert. It was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. Bad days like this are a part of life, just like the good ones. We all know that. The question is, how are we to deal with them when they come upon us, those bad days? First of all, we simply need to accept the fact that bad days are going to happen, and we just have to deal with them when they do. How can we fix what's broken? Can we call on loved ones and others to help us with the solution? What might there be in our own behavior that might have brought about the bad situation? Do we need to own up to something? Can we change our behavior so this thing won't happen to us again in the future? All things to think about. Bad things are going to happen to us. Say you lose your job. Maybe you saw it coming, or maybe it was a complete surprise. Maybe it was your fault for not performing well, or maybe the market or demand or something is changing and that line of work is just going away. Nobody's fault, certainly not yours. Maybe a relationship is falling apart. Again, maybe you saw it coming and maybe it was a complete surprise. Maybe it was your fault and maybe not. Maybe the other person wronged you, or maybe you wronged the other person. In any case, there you are hanging on to a relationship with an uncertain future and outcome. Not a very good day. Maybe you fall into bad health. You're injured in an accident or get a scary diagnosis. I'll tell you, I'm presently going through a series of tests and treatments and so forth to follow up to a little minor stroke, which I had back in December. Right now, I'm wearing a heart monitor. It measures what my heart is doing. And after I've worn it for 2 weeks, I'm supposed to take and mail it back to them, and they'll read what it says about my heart. So wish me luck. But somehow, even when these things happen to us, we have to keep on going. If our circumstances are changed, we have to adjust to the new circumstances. Friends and loved ones can help us with this. A seminary classmate of mine served a church in Maryland. One day while she was sitting in her office at the church, she suffered a massive stroke. Instantly, she was rendered unable to walk, to get up out of a chair, eat, dress, bathe, or do almost all of the activities of daily living. Fortunately for her and for all, her stroke did not affect her speech, although, as I'm sure you know, many stroke victims do become unable to speak or speak in a very strange way. It's now been 9 years since her stroke, and with lots of hard work and therapy and help from friends and loved ones, she is now able to walk with a 4-legged cane. She can use one arm and hand, fortunately her dominant one, but she can't use the other one, and she can drive a car. So she has managed to rescue from the disaster of her stroke the ability to continue to do many things in life. How can all of us not give thanks for such a thing? for such an outcome from a dreadful stroke. And then, of course, we grow old. At a conference on aging, which I attended some time ago, one of the speakers said this. She said, as we grow older, we begin to discover body parts we never knew we had. Some of them hurt. Then we begin to learn that each of these body parts has a physician specialist, and we need to go and see all of them. These physician specialists will give us medications to take and exercises to do and lifestyle changes to make. Going to see all these doctors and taking all these medications and doing all these exercises and making all these lifestyle changes takes a lot of time. And that's why we need to retire. Maybe some of us can identify with that. Finally, of course, there is death. We must all face this reality, and we know that. Sometimes death comes to us instantly and unexpectedly. Sometimes we can see it coming and can get ready for it. In the Book of Common Prayer, which is in use in some churches, there is a prayer asking God to offer protection, not from death, which no one can protect us from, but from death unprepared for. And so preparing for death is one of our tasks which we must face and do in this life. Of course, there are legal tasks to do about this, writing wills and so forth, all those things. But the real tasks of facing our own death are the spiritual ones, preparing our loved ones and ourselves for what is to come. Sometimes I will visit someone in the hospital or maybe at home, an old person who was very ill and probably facing death. Especially in our Unitarian Universalist faith tradition, there isn't much traction in suggesting that they can look forward to heaven, where everyone will be playing harps and walking down streets paved with gold. The truth of the matter is, they don't have much to look forward to, at least in terms of the pleasures we know. In that case, I sometimes invite someone to look back instead of forward, to savor the good times and blessings they have enjoyed in this life. Their loved ones, their spouse, their children, their work, their leisure, their music, their books, their garden, all of the things that have brought them joy and satisfaction in this life. We all have these things, and it's good to remember and reflect on them when the going gets tough. Of course, when we face death, although we don't look forward to playing harps and strolling on streets paved with gold, we can look forward to eternal rest. For all that is our life, we give our thanks and praise. Some of it has been difficult, but much of it has been wonderful. Let's remember that as we go forward. We have all received many gifts, and let us remember that life itself is the greatest gift of all. Those are some of my thoughts about this subject on this beautiful spring day after a rather strange day and night just passed. What thoughts do you have about this subject? Let the congregational dialogue begin.